Hi guys, welcome. This is me, Anthony, and today we are going to be talking about the 1 year anniversary, which is I'm recording this like an hour and 30 minutes before the actual anniversary. This is going to go, into my personal opinion of Viva Las Vengeance and what I feel about it 1 year after, the initial release, which is tomorrow, the day that this is being recorded. I'm gonna have a long night trying to fucking edit this shit. But I will mention what I used to feel about it. So this is kind of just gonna be an overview of like if what I liked about it and has anything changed. So if you have an opinion on Viva Las Vengeance, please be sure, if you watch this video of course, be sure to tell me in the comments below and your personal opinion about it. And yeah, let's get on with it. Viva Las Vengeance was a, I don't know how to really describe it. I know it's a rock opera based in Brandon's history in LA again for like the third time. I don't know why. Again, the songs, which I noticed when it started to first come out, got a mad ton of hate. And I know the majority is from the bias of, the I hate Brandon Urie train mainly on Twitter, which is why a lot of people kind of like hated the album. When I first heard the album, I thought it was pretty average. Like it's like in the middle of like above and just average. So it's like not the greatest thing in the world. But I wouldn't say it's the worst album out there. Far from it. It's not the worst Panic album. I still think that award goes to Pray for the Wicked. But this album was just average because it does that whole thing of like going into the past and picking out sounds from like the early rock ages, especially Queen, because Queen is a major artist band that Brendan references a lot to because it's his favorite, seems to be his favorite band at this point. So a lot of references comes with Queen, which you see with God Kill Rock and Roll. And again, that also leads into some of the critiques about this album, and that is regarding the influence that the old rock sounds have on Brendan, which also seems to dive into his lyricism, which did not come out as well as one might expect. Not that he's the greatest lyricist out there, but a lot could have been done to really fix that issue, which didn't happen. But we're gonna get on to that aspect right now. Like one of the biggest issues about this album that me and a lot of other people had was with the lyricism. And the lyricism in this, like I mentioned on this album, half of the shit didn't make any sense. Because this is the type of thing that you need to have something explained towards you. Which even Brendan at times, especially with the song Middle of a Breakup, Brendan didn't help explain what it meant because I'm not sure. I remember he was asked this when he played live at New York, right, on the news channel, and he didn't know. I don't think he even responded to it. That's kind of the thing. I don't think he responded to that whole thing. So it's like half of the songs kind of didn't make any sense. So it's kind of like he bullshitted half of them, and so it's like, oh, this sounds like this. This sounds like this. If it matches, put it together. And yeah, so it's like the lyricism should have had more work done to it. Like some of the lyrics are like they want to hit home, but they don't. And so that does not make any of these, not any of them, but the majority of these songs not relatable. Like a lot of the older Panic songs, especially when you look into like A Fever You Can't Sweat Out or anything before Pray for the Wicked, you can probably relate to. That is the main critique that I have with the album, is just going to be the lyrics. Because there's lyrics like middle of a breakup, right? Apart from, breakup, sex in the middle of a breakup, which is just a fucking goofy line. There's also Keep Your Disco, Gimme T-Rex, which I did not understand in the slightest because I was so confused when I heard that line. A lot of people did not know what he was talking about until it was brought up. Oh, he is referring to the band T-Rex, which still kept me confused because I still had no idea what the dude was talking about. So I'm like, sure, whatever, right? I had to look at Genius for the fucking meaning. And then that is also the issue. Like I mentioned already, like several times, the lyricism. The whole issue with the lyricism even caused drama for some of the songs on this album, and that goes for Local God, which is a song that people assumed was a diss track towards Ryan Ross and Dallin from I Don't Know How, which is not a diss track in any formal way. Somehow people thought it was, just like people thought the song Dallin made, Leave Me Alone, was a diss track on Brendan, even though it wasn't. It was a diss track on The Bodyguard. So people thought Brendan responded to the song with Local God. Brendan had a line saying teaching little kids how to rock and roll, which is a line Dallin had in an old song of his with the Boobricks. I don't know how to pronounce that, I forgot. But Dallin had a song that uses a line similar to that. And so Brendan had that line. And so people thought, oh, he's dissing Dallin with that line. And I'm like, so I'm just so confused because I'm like, what the fuck do you mean? And then again with Ryan Ross, people thought Brendan was insulting Ryan Ross by calling him a local god, even though the song is, if you actually look into it, is Brendan praising Ryan for not basically, not chasing the stars and becoming famous, and, deciding to just stay as a local, almost like a local hero, local god, bro, like, known locally, but you're still loved. And Brendan chased for the stars, and look at the way that he fucking turned out. Cancelled. Like, it didn't make any sense. And that's the issue with the lyricism, is that people just assume everything, and then it causes shit like this to happen. And again, I think this also happened with the title track Viva Las Vengeance, because people thought Brendan saying "Stole My Favorite Song" was a diss to fucking Dallin somehow, and it wasn't. I believe the song that line was referencing when, I believe was High Hopes was used for a presidency, which I believe was with Trump, which Brendan got really upset with. And that is what he was referencing in that line. And again, a lot of shit did not make any sense. So people made their own headcanon and passed it off as real, which also caused a lot of drama. And then you had Dallin fans fighting with fucking Brendan fans, and then Ryan fans fighting with fucking Brendan fans, and then they're all fucking fighting each other. It didn't make any fucking sense. And that is the issue with this album, because the lyrics cause a lot of drama, pointless drama. And I know this kind of comes out of the fucking audience being fucking mentally stupid, especially Twitter, but that is the major issue that I have with this album. Again, there's also a lot of goofy lines like "hold my fucking heavy machinery." It doesn't have fucking, but it's like "hold my heavy machinery," something like that, because I don't fucking remember it, because that's how fucking goofy it was. And then a lot of songs like, and something about Maggie had fucking Mama and Papa fucking shitting bricks, bro. Like, the lyrics, again, in this album was goofy as fuck. Which I don't know if he did that shit on purpose. It kind of gives a little bit of life to the album, but he really needed a lot more help when it came to writing the lyrics. Which is, again, the major critique that I have with this album. And that's probably the only critique the major one that I have with this album. Because the next thing is kind of more like nitpicky, but not really, because it's still a critique at the end of the day. But we'll go into it right now. So one of the major criticisms that the album got was with Brendan's vocals. And so people saying that Brendan is losing his voice in the majority of the songs, which I don't fully agree with it. I feel like Brendan still has his vocal talent, especially because I saw the dude live and he still sounds really good. So, not that he lost his vocal talent. I feel that came from the way that they recorded the album, that makes it sound like, his voice is like lower than it should be. And it's also the idea that the dude is also trying to reach a note that he can't really hit, because he's trying to hit those like Freddie Mercury hit notes, and you can notice that with like songs like Sad Clown, where he's trying to hit a really high note, which is gonna damage his voice. Because if you notice on the Viva Las Vengeance tour, the dude doesn't always make it through, the songs that require high notes. And that's kind of another issue with the album, which is a nitpicky one, is that Brendan relies a little bit too much on the high notes, which is like, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, it's cool. I cannot hit those high notes. I fucking die midway when I hit a middle note, but he's constantly trying really hard to hit a super high note. That it's like, Brendan, just calm down a little bit, bro. Like, we heard it on the fucking title track. We heard it again in Don't Let the Light Go Out. We heard it again in a fucking Sad Clown. I don't know how many times you need to hear your fucking high notes, bro. Like, I like your voice, but chill out a little bit. Like, I feel like this album needed more of like lower notes and stuff, right? Because he can hit low notes. He's really good at that. Like, hell, like Emperor's New Clothes has Brendan hitting like lower notes and it sounds great. So I feel like Brendan should have done more like that, but he didn't, which is, again, you know, it's like a nitpick, but it's still like a minor, like, again, it's a minor critique that I have with it, and a critique that many people have with that album. I don't think he's lost his voice. I just feel like he's fucking doing too much to it, that he probably will end up losing it if he continues on that fucking route, which I don't think he is for a while since he kind of quit. But that's kind of the major, not the major one, but kind of like more of like the side critique that I have with the album. Again, I think the voice is pretty well. There are parts where it sounds a little like, you know, and Don't Let the Light Go Out is one of the main ones where he's like trying to hit a high note, but then it sounds like he's like suffering or screeching it. I feel like it sounds more scratchy to me, and it sounds like when the lead singer of Mudder Mudder, like, you know, screams, right, and you hear a little scratch to it. I feel like that's what he was trying to do, but because people know him as like, oh, he hits high notes, that's what people kind of took it as, like, oh, he's losing his voice, which he's not. I feel like he still sounds as good as before. It's just that he probably should have had a better production and should have done overall a little better when it came to that whole aspect with the voice and the high notes and all of that other stuff. I'm trying to close it off because it's kind of a little of a longer video. I don't hate the album as many people do. I feel like if people push away the bias of like hating Brendan as a person, because everyone has their own perception of Brendan Urie as a human being, I feel like some people will like the album. If I know there's Panic fans in general that don't hate Brendan, that don't like it, right? I have a friend who doesn't hate Brendan, who doesn't like the album, and that's also really fair. To me, like I mentioned, it's not that I didn't like it or liked it, it's just that it was kind of average, or as one may say, it's mid. The album did grow on me a lot, more than I probably would have expected, which kind of shocked me. Like, every now and then I just put on Viva Las Vengeance more than I put on like Pretty Odd or Vices and Virtues or any of the other albums. I don't know why. It just became almost like a background sort of like album. Oh god. It kind of became a background sort of album for me, where it's like, just plop that shit in the background and have a listen to it. Like, it's not horrifically bad, but it's just average. I still think it's pretty average, but above average. So it's not like I think it's below or I don't like it at all. The critiques are still there of like the album should have been done much better and Brendan should have put more work into it. Like, I get he was having fun, but he should have tried a little bit more and changed the production, which again, we really got this shit instead of a fucking metal album, which is still hurting me. But anyways, the album isn't horrible. It's kind of just mid, like many people say. I don't agree with many of the takes about it. Like, there's so many people saying like it's the worst Panic album, like I mentioned earlier. It's not. I don't think it is. I feel like people push aside the hate towards Brendan, you'll probably like the album a little bit more. But it's, I mean, an opinion is an opinion. Again, maybe that's just me because I don't hate the guy. So maybe I liked it a little bit, not so much, but a little bit more than an average person would. But yeah, I mean, it was alright. And even 1 year later, I still think it's pretty alright. Not really the best thing in the world, but it sounds like a normal, like, oh, you'll probably pick the shit up in the 80s, and there it is. I still think the production should have been done better, but yeah, I mean, overall, it grew on me a lot. That's basically the overall thing. It just grew on me more than I, like I said, would have expected it to be. Like, my favorite song off the album is basically just Say It Louder and the title track, which is probably the two best songs off the album. The rest of them is either like, it's good, but it has a lot of flaws, or it has good bits that is fucking overpowered by the bad bits. And this really comes into play with freaking God Killed Rock and Roll. Would I recommend this to end like a casual listener? If I'm trying to get someone into Panic, I would not, personally, I wouldn't recommend Viva Las Vengeance first. But unless they were into like early rock and roll bands, maybe. Anyways, that's really about it. This is basically just my overall, like I mentioned, overall critique and what I feel about it 1 year after its release. So happy birthday to Viva Las Vengeance. God, I really wish you got a metal album instead. And this is really the final Panic album too, bro. Like, how do you drop it off at mid, bro? How do you drop it off at mid? It just had to end at mid, bro. Like, it couldn't have ended on a metal album. It could have ended in a metal album. What I do like, though, is the final song, Do It to Death. I like how it just, like, you know, right after the shut up and go to bed and Do It to Death, and then it does like the little buzzing noise. That leads into the introduction of A Fever, so it's like a whole loop. So I thought that was pretty cool. If only the album wasn't mid, but here we are. Anyways, could have been done better. It's still above, you know, it's still average, but above average for me. But I feel like to a general audience, it's just gonna be average. It could have been done a lot more better if he had more help with it. But you know, I heard it live, and hearing it live kind of revived that, like, me like liking the album. Not revive it, it gave it more life to me and made me appreciate the album a little bit more. And ever since Brandon fucking dipped out of here, it also made me appreciate the album a little bit more than usual. It's basically about it. Thank you for watching, and again, if you have an opinion about the album or maybe something you don't really agree with, please leave it down in the comments below. Any opinion is a good opinion. Anyways, I'll see you guys on the next one. This was supposed to be the second part of my Oshinoko review, bro. God damn it. And then I remembered Panic at the Disco, the Viva Las Vengeance album, was gonna complete un año, bro. Like, god damn. It just had to turn into 1 year. I should have done this before. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you want to stick around for any other album talking type of thing, be sure to stay tuned for that. At some point, I want to do a ranking of all the Panic at the Disco songs and albums. So, yeah. I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye. Bye. There we go. The camera. I keep staring off to the distance. The light makes me look fucking tan. I don't know how to end a video off. Alright, goodbye.